Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be absolutely bonkers. Now, the data is in, and I'm going to ask you as the viewer to judge what I'm about to present you. Now, I've been able to gather 4 to 5 appraisals from viewers just like you that have recently purchased a home. And I believe, or at least rather, I'm concerned that what we're witnessing right now in regard to appraisal value is a complete cover up. What I want you guys to do as the viewers is be the judge, and I want to present you with 4 different sets of data, 4 different appraisals, and I want to ask you at the end of this video to answer the question, is this appraisal fraud? Is that what we are seeing? Now, first I have to briefly explain to you my specific concerns. Now, what you have here is a Fannie Mae bulletin and update that was sent out December 2023. This is an appraisal update. Fannie Mae highlighted concerns in regards to seller concessions, specifically re-emphasizing how value and price is determined, stating the price represents the normal consideration for the property sold unaffected by special or creative financing or sales concessions granted by anyone associated with the sale. The reason that they sent this out is because they reviewed roughly, as you see here, 7.6 million different comparables, of which 58% of those comparables, the appraisers made no adjustments for concession. And they go on to state, of course, this tends to inflate the appraisal results and undermines the credibility of the appraiser. Now that we have a basic idea of guidelines, and now that we know that appraisers are supposed to make adjustment for seller concessions, let me show you appraisal number 1, and let's get a baseline idea of how an appraiser should be calculating value. What I'd like to highlight is each of the 3 comparables, as you see here, has 0 concessions. You see that? 1, 2, 3 comparables with 0 concessions. And I'll also note that each of these comparables is in the subject property's subdivision. And you guys will also note here that the purchase price of this property was $600,000. You'll notice as well that this appraisal was done on April 2nd, and actually it appraised for $621,000, which means the person that purchased this property actually walked in to $21,000 in equity. Now that's how an appraisal should go. We want home buyers to be walking into equity. Now I know these people have been taken care of because these are the only clients that I have ever represented from YouTube, and I made sure to put them through the ringer, and I made sure to let them know that I was not willing to represent them unless they were willing to walk away and get a great deal. Now, again, that's our baseline case for how an appraisal should be done. No seller concessions, no adjustments needed, and it appraised for higher, actually, than the sales price. Thus, the client now knows that they're walking in to equity. But let me show you guys how rare that actually is. And I want to thank the viewers who sent these appraisals into me. Again, I cannot do this without you. Big shout out to the Real Estate Mindset community for sending this in. Again, if you have an appraisal, if you've purchased a home recently, email me. My email's in the description. Send me your appraisal and we will use it to teach others what to watch out for. But regardless, here's appraisal number 2. And what I want to point out, again, this is crazy, you guys. This was actually appraised. You can see down here, July 12th. Again, this was appraised July 12th. This was 2 weeks ago. And again, what I want to point out is comparable number 2. You see that right there has a sales concession. You see I've highlighted that of $12,750, yet no adjustments were made. And what should have happened is something like this. A negative adjustment should have been made right here. Okay, thus bringing this value right here down by that amount. You also notice that there's 3 comps. So the value is not a direct $12,750 because again, you have 3 different sales values. But certainly we know that comp 2 does indicate seller concessions. And we also know this was done 2 weeks ago and no adjustments were made. Now, I want to bring up a comment from a viewer and member that's actually claiming to be an appraiser because they're mentioning something, a guideline that I think it's really important to confront and understand that it doesn't apply to what we're talking about. Take a look. Big shout out to my community. We are growing together. This is an absolutely beautiful thing. Now, Steve states, and I believe he's an appraiser, at least he's told me he is, that Fannie Mae Selling Guide 4B-1.3-09 adjustment for comparable sales. Adjustments based on dollar for dollar deductions that are equal to the cost of the concessions to the seller as a strict cash equivalent approach would dictate are not appropriate. Please continue to test me and ask questions, but the issue here is it's not equivalent. It's not equivalent. It would have to match dollar for dollar, would have to be equal. In other words, the seller would have had to have got $12,500 in seller concessions for that adjustment not to have been counted. But here's the thing, you guys, I have an appraisal now that I'm going to show you where all three comps have different values of seller concessions with 0 adjustments made. All right, guys, take a look at this bad boy right here. So the guideline I just read to you is thrown right out the door because look it, every comp number 1, 2, and 3, each of them have seller concessions, and they are seller concessions for different amounts. So some type of adjustment should have been made because the appraiser is indicating various seller concessions, with comp number 1 having a seller concession of $4,060, comp 2 having a very close seller concessions of $4,099. But look at comp number 3. Comp number 3 has a $12,000 seller concession. So in this report, you cannot say these are equivalent to what the seller is receiving in concessions. In other words, you guys, what should have happened is a reduction of value of $4,060 should have been made here. A reduction of value of $4,099 should have been made here, and a reduction in value of $12,000 should have been made here, which will affect the bottom line value of each of these comparable cells. Now, once again, you guys, this is a recent appraisal report that dates back to just last month. This one right here, y'all, is an absolute doozy. So here's our next appraisal. And we got multiple concerns right here. Now, first of all, let's go to the seller concessions. Okay, so let me zoom in here. First of all, you guys can see that there's seller concessions in comp number 1 of $10,455. Now, we've noticed a trend. Obviously, 0 adjustments have been made here and no value reduction has been given there. Now, to the point of that last guideline, if this seller received $10,455 in seller concessions, then this would warrant no deduction, right? But as we saw with the last report, it doesn't even matter because they're not doing that anyways. So far, I hope you've noticed a trend, but this report right here, you guys, is absolutely shocking because of comp number 2. Now, first of all, I also want to say that the last appraisal that I just showed you guys was done in the same subdivision as this property. Now, what is so alarming about the appraisal that you're looking at in comp number 2 is that was a comparable sale that they got outside of the subdivision. Again, you guys, the appraiser picked a comp that was outside of the subdivision. Now, the first question I had was, well, why would they do that? So I automatically looked at price per square foot and noticed that unfortunately for the appraiser and the homeowner that purchased this property, comp number 2 that is outside of the subdivision is being sold for a much higher price per square foot, being $206. You guys, appraisers are not supposed to use comparable data outside of the subdivision. And so when they do, they create something called an addendum, which is exactly what this appraiser did. But their reasoning is straight fraud, in my opinion. Let's look. As a result of them going outside of the subdivision, they're now forced to explain why. And this is what they say. Due to the lack of comparable sales data in the subject property subdivision in the last 12 months. So I know this, I teach about this. You've heard me say this all the time. I have videos on my playlist that explains appraisal value. But the thing is, guys, this isn't accurate because there were several comps in the subdivision because, again, the appraisal I just showed you was done in the same subdivision. But this goes on. The comparable sales perimeters were expanded in order to provide sales to be statistically significant. And what I'm specifically saying is you cannot expand the parameters because there was enough comparable data in that subject property subdivision. So in addition to this appraisal being in that same subdivision, and again, okay, so 2 months later, this appraisal report is done, and there are plenty of comps. Do you see that? Every one of these comps was pulled in the subject property subdivision. In fact, look at the distance. Comp 1.04, comp 2.05, comp 3.02. Again, you guys, this is the same subdivision as this. And so in addition to that, the viewer also sent me in a CMA that showed me 84 cells in that subject properties subdivision. So in other words, you guys, it just doesn't add up. And just to recap, looking at 3 appraisals, 5 of the 9 comps had seller concessions reported without any type of adjustment in value made, as is required and reported from the bulletin that we just read from Fannie Mae. Now, y'all, this is recent data. That pamphlet was sent out in December of 2023. We're more than halfway through 2024. What they're doing with appraisal value, in my opinion, you guys, is straight fraud. And in addition to those 5 comps showing seller concessions, the appraiser actually used a comp outside of the subdivision. It appears that they lied in the document about needing to do that because there was still, according to the CMA, 84 cells in the last 12 months, and yet they said there was not enough. You guys, quite frankly, these things are just not adding up, and if it was me and I did these appraisals, I would certainly take that information and I would report it to the proper authorities. But my question to you is, as the viewer, and again, I've showed you the data, I've showed you the reports, this is straight from recent home buyers that are members of the real estate mindset community. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that this is potentially appraisal value fraud? I'm really interested to hear what you think. Share with me your comments below. If you're an appraiser, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you and make a video and go over this intimately with you. If you've recently purchased a house, if you have an appraiser, please, you guys, send it to me. I will review it and I will let you know my concerns, if any. And again, big shout out to the community. Big thank you to all the viewers for allowing me to teach you, for allowing me to take this data, to take these reports and share it with others so that we can try to make a difference in other people's lives. Again, you guys, let me know how I did. Comment, like the video, share this video. And other than that, if you're out there investing in real estate, you guys already know I wish you luck and I hope you win.